Hello, I am Janae. You are now rocking with the hostess with the mostest. This is your girl, the natural hair. Oh, we gotta switch it up because I just became an indie dev. The indie dev gamer, Junae Benne, and we are on Gaming for the Culture. And today we have a very special guest, my big friend, my new big friend, right? Glen Henry. He is a indie developer from Jamaica, and he's been doing this thing way longer than me. I've only been doing it for a month. Glenn's probably been doing it for like 15 years, like who knows. And we are going to talk to him about the Jamaican gaming industry, like general like gaming culture, Jamaican gaming culture, things like that, and hear what he's got to say about his own projects. So, Glenn, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think we're due. I feel like we're due for like a conversation that'll probably take like 3 hours. So I said,
Very likely.
why not do it here? So, Glenn, I told the people a little bit about where you are. Do you want to give us a background of like how you became an indie dev in Jamaica? Like, obviously, you live in Jamaica, right? Like, I'm not going to ask you how you got there, but like, give us a little bit of a background.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica. And how I ended up falling into games is that when I was attending university, that's the University of the West Indies. That's a big university in the Caribbean. It's Cross Island. I eventually saw like the movie, Indie Game, the movie, which has not aged the best, but I saw it and it kind of inspired me. It kind of showed that, hey, you can begin making games where you are. So that's what I did. Popped onto some forums, did some research, and just started like mashing pixels together. I was already kind of artistically inclined, and I was doing a computer science degree. So like it just made sense. And we were just joking about this earlier, one thing kind of led to another, and then suddenly I find myself as an indie dev. So yeah, that's how SpriteWrench, which is the name of my studio, started. And that's what I've been doing pretty much in some way ever since. Yeah.
What was your major before, or like?
So it was computer science. It was just computer science. That was that was a major. Graduated and everything, but it was always trying to see if like, can we make the gaming thing, work? Like, how does that work? How do you get paid? How do you get things in front of people? Because before that, the idea was always that if you wanted to get into the gaming industry, right, you'd have to migrate. You'd have to attend a university abroad, so like Full Sail or DigiPen or somewhere like that, that's gaming focused, and then somehow in quotes magically end up in the industry, right? That was kind of the ideal if I really wanted to seriously like pursue like that way, but that always felt like I would not be making games until like I wouldn't be allowed to make games until like way down. Like there's way more knowledge I needed to get before I was allowed, right? Like after seeing the movie and after getting like familiar with all these other people who are kind of just making games in their bedroom, it kind of inspired me to this. Like I don't need permission. I can just start. Yeah.
So when you were doing it, how many other people were also like, hey, I want to make games? What was the support system like for you in school, in the university?
So in school, when I was in the university, it's like first or second year in like a 3-year degree. There was a lot of other students who were interested, like they actively want to learn how to do it. So everybody was kind of working together to find tutorials and things. But for one reason or another, people didn't necessarily like finish. The lecturers and professors also were interested in it, but it's not their job and it's not their primary focus. So some of them were like very supportive of it. And it's like, hey, that's a very cool thing you're doing. And then others are like, but where's your assignment though? So that was a thing. After uni, after graduating, I kind of went into a traditional IT job, but was still kind of just working on side projects for a while. And that was my journey for like 6-7 years. It was just working on my projects on the side, figuring out how to actually publish things, teaching myself about how the Steam publishing pipeline works. And over that period, like I eventually found other people who were like, okay, they want to make a serious run of this, right? So people like Graham Reed, of Graham of Legend. I have another friend by the name of Robert, and Robert Morrison Jr., who makes some very cool like mobile projects. Like we eventually found each other, and that group basically became the seed that started what we're calling the JGDS, which is the Jamaica Game Developer Society, which is really just like this free-form collective of people who are like interested in game development to varying degrees, from hobbyists to professional, to kind of like support each other and kind of grow things and try and make a Caribbean game industry happen, because it's loose, it's not formalized. A lot of people are kind of just like out there looking for like the hero, quote unquote, just like make it big, like just showcase like this is what can come out of the island. And then the hope is that like if we can identify somebody like that, we can like spotlight and support them, boost them. It will encourage other people to do so, like get into it. And what we've seen is that a couple of the universities, like UWI, I'm not sure if UWI has a program yet. They may be in talks, but I'm not sure if they have a program yet. But UTech, University of Technology, which is the other university out here, has recently started a game studies program. So they do have a game design elective that you can take up and run with, which is progress. But now the idea is now, how do we translate all of that into like jobs? How do you translate that into paid work? What happens next? And yeah, that's a very brief and very loose summary of the game industry in Jamaica. And yeah.
That's really interesting. You answered one of my questions, which was, how does the support differ from when you started until now? Mm-hmm. And I have seen like the Jamaican Game Development Society. I've seen their Twitter, mm-hmm. and I thought it was like a woolly of people. I thought it was like a lot of people in it, and then you're like, it's me, Robert.
No, like that's where we started. Like,
okay.
No, I think the Discord has like probably 400 people.
Oh, okay.
Like, it is like a spread of like how many people who are like super active. Like, in any Discord, you're gonna have like 10 people who are like there all the time, and then a bunch of people who are lurking. Like that's kind of where we are. But yeah.
I do love that though, because I have never went to school in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. But from like experiencing the culture, I just imagine people being a lot like that teacher who's like, where's your assignment? Like, good for you. Great. Do something for real, like anything like that. And so I'm really proud that you had somebody that like, supported you and believed in you, because it really just takes one. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, you obviously haven't moved from Jamaica. Mm-hmm. You stayed there, and you made it work somehow. How many games do you have under your belt right now?
Like not counting jam games, I have 4 released and 2 under development.
How many is it with James? Game Jams.
Game Jams.
Game
Jams. I think I have like, if I include the Game Jam games, I am confident I'm forgetting one. There's like 3 or 4 more added in there, just like floating around somewhere. Like, yeah. So we're looking at like probably like 10 projects in all of starting. and that's 10 with like many asterisks, because there might be like a project that depends on what you're counting as like a project, because some of them would be started and like it moves and there's an idea and you can play it, but it probably isn't finished. But who knows? I might end up going back to them many years from now, and finishing up, because that has actually happened. Like one of my projects, the project I released last year, on the Peril of Pirates, that started as a jam game from like 2018, and I really liked the idea, but I wasn't sure how to like wrap it in a theme, and that eventually became this retro futuristic AI project called On the Peril of Pirates, which I'm exceedingly proud of, and it's still kind of weird how many the connections that game has. Because
is that the one you had at the Mix Collective at GDC?
Yeah, that's the one I had at the Mix Collective, because the name of that project is based on a research paper by a Dr. Timnit Gebru and a bunch of other researchers, and that is speaking about like just the dangers around some of the. I'm about to nerd out. Apologies. Some of the dangers around large language models, and because I did that game, a friend of mine randomly saw her in New York, showed her the game, so she now is aware of the game. And if you go to, I think, the DAIR, which is the institute that she runs, the Distributed AI Research Institute. I think it's linked off of one of their sites, one of them, which is weird. I also got to meet her when she came to Jamaica for the game, not game dev, program summer camp that she did last year. So weird connections attached to that game.
Did she host the program, or was she a part of it?
She was a part of it. She was one of the cool lecturers.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's cool. I love the story behind a game, especially when it's not like, I like money, which indie devs, I don't know who really say that. So I get it. I get it now, right? The one game jam that I did that ended like 3 days ago.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that might become your magnum opus like 2-3 years from now. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
And I feel like games are like paintings, right? So maybe you did start this in like 2018 and then it's just now getting finished up, I think, or it being completed, circa 2024. I think that's really cool, because then you've been able to like look at it, redo it, look at it, put it away, complete something else after doing that, look at it, and I think it's always cool when there's like a deeper meaning, especially for like the game that I just did that takes place in Jamaica, which it just made sense to me, right? Because the topic was the Melanated Game Kitchen and Black in Gaming Big Bite Jam, where the theme was collective power. And the food item, because Melanated Game Kitchen is always dealing with like food items in their game jams, was beef patty. So I'm like, yeah, this makes sense, And then it's like, okay, well, if it's beef patty, this is how my mind was working. I'm like, if it's a beef patty, it needs to incorporate like Jamaica. It needs to incorporate the values like Wiliko Batalawa, Ota Many People One. Like, that's collective power. That makes total sense to me. And which I just said, out of many people one, and we're little, but we're tall, but we're big. So, incorporating that into it and then building it out. And literally some of the art that's used are pictures from like that I took in like 2006. Like my very first trip that I remember that I was like conscious of and have memories. I use those pictures, that art, as references for the game. And I'm like, how freaking cool is that? Like, how cool is that? And so I'm really excited to like build it out and then be like, this is mine. Like, I mean, all 4 of Jamaican people that are gamers are probably going to play it and understand it and be like, wow, this is so cool. But, it's mine. And I also learned that, not to be too invested in the game to where you don't do what's best for the consumer or for like, your audience. How do you balance out being like, this is what I want to do, but also this is a feature that I could insert, or like a conversation that I can insert that's really going to help bring in more people. So you're not so niche.
Yeah, there's definitely like this weird balancing act you kind of have to do with any project, like, because like you said, it's like a painting. It's art process. Even if you don't necessarily agree on if games are art, I do think games are art, by the way. Even if you don't necessarily land there, there is this weird give and take with the process, creative process, where you have to consciously decide, okay, how much of myself am I putting into it, and how much of that are you comfortable diluting for the sake of like accessibility, or you don't want to necessarily muddle the message, or just a bunch of commercial considerations on top of design considerations on top of everything. And one of the things I on that note, like I keep reminding myself, like when I'm making some stuff, it's like it's okay to have an opinion. Right? It's okay to say something with your work. You don't necessarily it doesn't have to be necessarily right or wrong, but you can just straight up have an opinion. And like on the same pirate game, I shorten it for pirate game because the name is very long. I had to be okay with planting my flag regarding the whole AI debate, right? Because it was one of those things where I felt like, oh, am I qualified to speak on this? Am I qualified to say a message? Am I what on all of that stuff? But at the end of it, after doing a little bit of thinking on it, it's like, it's my project. I can say that I don't like how certain things are going, and this is the mode that I want to comment on, like, and that's fine. But yeah, definitely resonate with that kind of balancing act of how much of yourself you put into a project versus like watering things down. Yeah.
I can understand that. I have seen games that do something like, for example, I'm not going to be coded with it. I just don't remember the game. When I first started reviewing games in like 2013, 2014, a game came out by a French company where it was talking about like slavery or something, and then it was a mini game, and then you had to fit Africans, the black people, in the boat like Tetris. Gosh. And when I first wrote it, I was like, they're talking about slavery. And then like as I got older, I was like, isn't there a better way that they could have done this besides making it a mini game, and I don't know, they're French, so I can't even start to be like, oh, like I know there is a lot of like Africans, black people in France. So this also prompted like my documentary, because initially I wanted to talk about like black people in gaming, black women in gaming. And then I was like, if you're going to Europe, you're going to get like 4. And then your documentary is going to be over in like 4 minutes. So I widened it to women, but like, it's like if game companies don't even have women, then they probably don't have black people. You know what I mean? On like the scale of like, with it being like a white man, and then like, like white women, and then like Asians, Latin people, black people, LGBTQ, like, you know what I mean? Like on the list of people that should be included, if they come after white women, like, they're probably not going to have it. So they're going to do these things that are wrong, but guess what? It got produced and published anyway. So I definitely agree with you about that. And even you saying that makes me feel better about the game that I made. When I was doing the interview, I was like, I didn't grow up in Jamaica, but I remember going through the streets of Jamaica when I was visiting.
Mhm.
And the last time I wrote something about Jamaica, this Jamaican lady got on Twitter and was like, "You're not even Jamaican." And I was like, and so it did make me nervous to try to do another piece, even though I know what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
We're gonna get off topic. We're gonna stay on
No.
topic, but we're gonna get off topic really quickly because
Mhm.
there's this discourse of this man going around doing reggae, doing dance hall, doing these things, and he's on a podcast telling a girl like, "I'm more Jamaican than you because you haven't been there," and it's like, what did you say? Like, you can't talk to people like that, especially. You cannot talk to people like that. I know that we are in a diaspora war, and many people are like, "You're not this."
Mhm.
And other people are like, "Everyone is welcome to our culture, even to our detriment."
Mhm.
I get that that's what's happening. So it's hard to like what to do pieces, because my household is Jamaican at the
Mhm.
end of the day. A lot of these things that I experience
Mhm.
in college, like living with a roommate going, what is that? What are you talking about? What, like, even to not even being able to fully it's so funny that I came out as a journalist, because even fully not being able to communicate because I'm using patois because I never learned the English word for something, and
Mhm.
I'm in the store asking people for pine action and they don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, please, where is it? Like, things like that. And then I make something and it's like,
You get.
but
You,
even you saying that, it definitely helps to be like, I can make whatever I want, right? Well, not whatever. I mean, I could make whatever. Like, I won't make whatever, but
it's
like,
it's perfectly fine for you to put yourself into your work. That's the point of art. That's the point of
yeah,
being
yeah,
creative. And regarding the whole diaspora war, um, I try not to put my foot in it because I already got caught in some issues as well at one point. But realistically, how I feel is that like Jamaican culture is very rich. It has a you know this cachet globally, and that people want to be Jamaican or like adjacent to being Jamaican or stuff like that. And it leads to this weird like division behavior because that issue even happens within people who are from the island, right? So like people on the island, not even, like I'm not, when I say from the island, I'm talking about people who are like here. So like you're not considered Jamaican if your skin is too light or stuff like that. It's like you're not the same, and what I think we need to kind of do, or what would be really cool, I see if like if we are just a little bit more like open to the idea of people interacting with our culture, sharing their experiences with our culture, and just celebrating it. Like people like it, let them celebrate it. People are all over the place. The diaspora is widespread. Like there are, I don't remember the figures, but like there are a lot of people that are, like yourself, Jamaican, but like they're part of the wider diaspora, right? And they contribute. They have their experiences in relation to the island that is just as valid, just as important. Um, and I think just that being open and receptive to that kind of back and forth makes things so much more interesting. To me, that makes things a lot more interesting rather than trying to hold fast to this very rigid box of what a Jamaican is. And I say this as a dude with dreadlocks. um, yeah. Because I remember having a conversation with a couple of friends of mine, and this was for a panel that we did for pathfindings, where we spoke about like what is culture, what makes a Jamaican game Jamaican, and one of them pointed out something very important to me. It's like you are a Jamaican, so by definition, any game you make is Jamaican.
That's exactly what my friend said about having like black art.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, your art is black because you're black. You don't have to do something that feels black to make it black. And
Mm-hmm.
I think all of like the alt black girlies or alt black people
Yeah,
like appreciate that, because they don't have to be like, oh, I gotta listen to like metal and trap. But when you put metal and trap together, it's appreciated on like a higher level, like on a higher form. So I agree with
I
that.
think I think it's better. I think we, well, as creatives, I think it's a lot more fun to, rather than treat these things as like boxes and rules that you have to follow, as in like just guidelines. Like you can play in them, right? Your art that you make is black art because you're black, but you can also pull from the iconography to make interesting work. Like I have like a rule, like even it's not really a hard and fast rule, but even for my work, for my projects, they may not always have like a Jamaican character in there, like or based in Jamaica or something like that. But there is a little bit of spice in there. I think like one of my projects, Grim Tonic, one of the characters that you end up meeting is supposed to be like half West Indian character. Like she's from the islands, or half of her is from the islands. Her um, father, I think it's her father, and then the other half is an elf. Why not? Because I can, right? It's my prerogative. um,
Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah.
I think because it's a part of us, it's going to come out in some way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Specifically for Talawa, I did do it like a restaurant sign. Like the title screen kind of looks like
Yes, yeah,
that restaurant sign where they're always using all three of the colors,
mm-hmm.
and it's like a bit more bold. But I did that because I felt like that was right for this. Like the other game that I'm producing,
Mm-hmm.
it would technically be not Jamaican at all.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. There's not like a hint in there like of like Jamaican culture, and I think I agree with you. I think that's fine. I think it's important for me not even to like prove myself or to do anything, but because I do have ties to Jamaica, to try to always present it and like truth in light, and in solutions. Like the game, because they were like, oh, it's supposed to be environmentally friendly and about beef patties. And I was like, how am I supposed to do both? But my memories of Jamaica being filled with garbage along the highway, along everywhere. There's like so much garbage everywhere, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And it's like, okay, well, let's put that in there. A higher theme, a higher issue is like government and
Mm-hmm.
the locals not having access to some of the things that the tourists have access to,
Mm-hmm.
but that's like a whole Assassin's Creed game, right? Like that's like a different genre,
Mm-hmm.
different missions,
Mm-hmm.
different goals and things like that. So I have things that I want to say to promote activism in that way, but also I want to do full stuff too. Sometimes I just want to run around and do nothing, Sometimes I just want to like make it fun, and I think there's always room for both. There's room for both in even one thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely.
But
Uh, yeah, and again, artistically, like we've kind of went on weird tangents, but like artistically, we're free to explore them. Like there is another game done by, currently in development by two brothers from Jamaica. I think they're from Montego Bay actually. It's called Street Boy. And they've done a very good job of kind of replicating like just a seaside town. And I think the premise for the game is like some more unsavory elements, like crime and gangs are kind of moving into the area and changing things bit by bit. And you're a teenage boy running around dealing with that. Um, and I don't think they've done a lot to like shy away from that setting, shy away from that, which is pretty good. But if you talk to certain people, like certain investors who are very concerned about public image, they're probably going to tell you, "Hey, probably don't do that," right? Because people don't necessarily want to speak or think about some of the more negative aspects of things that are happening on the island. Because the garbage, for example, that is a thing. That is definitely a thing, and that's tied to like so many like socioeconomic things. Because it's like when you start digging into that, you're going to find out, oh, the reason why the garbage situation is as bad as it is because you have a lot of like informal settlements that are alongside the gullies, which are the channels that run through the island. And because they're informal, they don't have like proper sanitary systems in place, like a garbage truck or anything like that. So what do they do with their trash? Chuck it in the gully. And then that just gets carried out to sea. But there are a bunch of other little initiatives and things that are cropping up that can kind of come in to help. Like, I think there is like one of the big larger firms on the island is working with these other environmental focused organizations to set up like traps. So it's like a mesh trap at the mouth of the gully to kind of catch all the garbage and stuff like that. And they're doing analysis and a bunch of boring but important work around the stuff like that. So it's like, even just talking about that, like I'm talking like, oh, this is what's happening and this is the good that's happening out of it. And like my game dev pilled brain is stuck now. Like, is there a game there? Like, that would be cool to talk about. How do you work on that? But that's the reality of like my context. That's the lens that I live through. And I'm not going to yuck anybody else's lens. And if they want to take the time, the effort, and everything to put their work out there, right? Yeah. So like your experiences with Talawal, which again, I'm not sure if I said it, but I like the name.
You can't say it wrong. Because
I like the name.
Yeah, you can't say it wrong. That's my favorite part, because a lot of people have been like, Talawal, and I'm like, yep. Because whatever way you say it, it's still gonna come. It's gonna come out right. So that's like my favorite part. But thank you.
Like just dealing with like a narrative that's centered around this person's experience in this small part of the island, as you remember it. Like, there's nothing wrong there. That's brilliant.
I agree, and she's from Mobay, so you know, just. Doing it like I remember. So, yeah, I think I can't wait till there are more games, right? Like, I think through video games, and this could be a reaching statement, I think through video games and anime, we can have a proper depiction, or at least begin to piece together some of the cultural and historical things that are happening in like Japan and Asia, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's fair, because there's so much about it. There's so much media out there about it. And I remember a while ago, my cousin made a joke, because she was like, nobody knows what Jamaica looks like unless they come here, because you can't look us up on Google Maps. Like, you can't, like, and that was like a while ago.
Yeah. Like, it's okay for the major areas, but like if you start going like outside of the towns and outside of the main highways, you're gonna be in a warm time. Like, even well trod places, like I was going up to the Blue Mountains like the other day. Like, there's a camping grounds. They're called Hollywell. First time I've driven up there, right? And I decided, hey, let me use Google Maps. It sent me on the worst possible route, right? And it at one point is like, turn right, and right is just empty air.
Nah, they're trying to send you over a cliff. They're like, yeah, if you go this way and drop 600 feet, like, you'll be there. You've reached your
destination. I'm in the middle of the road.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, like that could be better, and Jamaican people, Caribbean people, the Black people, African people are creative. They're creative. So it's not like somebody hasn't thought of this. I think in some cases, they don't get the chance to, right? They don't get the chance to share their idea. They don't get the chance to do this, that, or we could all have like a better way to help society, the economy, but we are like also in survival mode. And so it's like, oh, I want to make a game, but like something came up. I have to do this. I have to do that. Or like, I want to sit down and be creative. I want to make, activist art, which is just art in general. Anything that people are like, hey, that's not going to be a good look. It's activism, and you should absolutely push more to do it, because that means people need to see it to start the conversation. And so I would like to see more pieces from these places that we've never heard of, right? Like, it's funny because I think people think like Montego Bay and Kingston are like right next to each other. They're like, what's the big deal? Like, I'll just fly into Kingston. And it's like, okay, you're gonna learn what the big deal is pretty soon, and I think it would be, because I have written a screenplay. I've written a screenplay for Rolling Calf, and it didn't get picked up because they didn't really get it. But they were like, oh, if you want to do something that's like not in the US, it'll be less expensive. And I was like, okay, let's do something about Rolling Calf then. Like, it's like a coming of age story type of thing. And if you don't know what that is, wait till the movie or the game comes out and you'll learn what it is. But it's like, that's a good story because it's so random. You know what I mean? It's so random. It could be a little bit like scary and things like that, but not because I don't really do horror, so it's not gonna be that scary. But like, that's a cultural story, right? And I think there is like a bit of a difference with like Anansi, but I think people associate Anansi with like West Africa too. So there are some stories about Anansi, but not like really. And I'm just not into it's not all duppy things that we have to do, right? It's not all like scary things, ghost things. Like, we don't have to just keep doing that, but it's just sharing the culture that like we all know and that people are getting to miss out of. You know what I mean? Like, what if somebody gets adopted from Jamaica and they never get to like learn about their culture? What are they supposed to do? Watch dance hall videos? We only know about our culture through like Spice and Vibes Cartel. Like, there's not more. There's not more, and so that's what I want. Like, that's what I want. I want to talk about like the Irish influence in Jamaica. Like, that was huge. Like, when I went to go visit Ireland, and they're like, oh yeah, like we know about Jamaica. And I'm like, I didn't know.
Yeah, like St. Elizabeth, and I don't remember where else. Like, there are pockets of like these transplant population, and then even like curry. Like people don't understand, like, when you speak about curry, like in Jamaica, in Trinidad and Tobago, like it's a big deal, and like it's almost its own thing, separate from India. So all those things, like,
it's different, and it would be nice, it would be nice to explore it in a way where, like, one, you don't have to do the labor, right? Like, somebody's like, Glenn, tell me about the difference between curry and blah, blah, blah. You're like, go to Trinidad. I don't know. I'll tell you about Jamaican curry, but you have to go to Trinidad.
Yeah.
You have to go there, like, so I started making, like, Jamaican food because I just felt like my area didn't have any, and like, being like, hey, if you guys want to buy Jamaican food, like, I'll make it for you because I can find all the ingredients. And then I posted it on LinkedIn, and somebody was like, yeah, I heard Jamaican people eat doubles. Me never done a double in my life. And so, I'm not trying to be like funny. I was just like, hey, I think that's more popular in like Trinidad. And then this Trini lady came and was like, yeah, that's really like an us thing. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm sure Jamaican people have it, but they're not going to eat it probably like pati. You know what I mean? They're not going to eat it like doubles, that. But like,
doubles is Trini, pati, us. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of funny also to visualize like these diaspora wars. Like, maybe there's just like a mini game where you're like, what's Trini? What's Barbados? What's Jamaica? What's this?
Are you arguing for a Caribbean version of Civilization?
Yes. Yes, that'd be so great. And then they have the boats. They have the boats that have to go from like place to place.
Versus the Tainos. Oh no!
Oh my gosh, we're doing it. It's official now. Cool, yeah, because then people would learn. Like, everyone's always learning about, like, I feel like we don't know everything about the Greek gods and goddesses.
We don't.
Like,
we don't. And just to circle back, like, even the ghost stories, the dopey stories, right? Like, we know some, but like the people who would like know it. Like those are your
Yeah.
grandparents or great grandparents.
Yeah.
They only know it from like telling the stories. It's just oral.
Yeah.
So like if it's not documented, like you're not gonna know. Like one of the projects that I currently have in development. So I have two. I have Sunken Stones and I have Dopey Detective Tasha. I was trying to do some research around like ghost stories, folklore. I couldn't find like a book like anywhere. The book I found was written by a British fellow who heard the stories from his Jamaican nanny.
And they're so accurate. They
Right?
always get it right. You can trust them.
So that's the book I found, and then there's a couple other books like on JSTOR or other places, and yeah, it's tricky for tracking that down. And then I know that if I could just like,
what we got to do, Glenn? I heard the solution from someone else. They said whenever you have like a computer question, you go to Reddit and you type in, and then you ask it on Reddit, and then you go into another account and you say the wrong thing. And so somebody could be like, no, dummy. What we have to do is make up our own ending and our own stories. So somebody can go, no, that's not how we do it. This is how it goes. Like, that's what we have to do.
Yeah. I don't remember. That was actually codified as a rule. I don't remember what the rule was, but like the method.
That's funny.
Like, post the wrong answer, then wait until somebody corrects you.
I think it's very possible to do that. Let's move on to the gaming industry as a whole, right? We want to talk about the gaming industry as a whole. We're in a time where like there are just thousands of layoffs. I think it's gotten to 10,000. I think it's gotten to 20,000. I think it's gotten to like 30, but I could be misremembering. Right? I think there's a number somewhere, and it's definitely got a comma in there. Like, what is your take on the state of the industry? Like, do you think that, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What is the state of the industry? What does that look like to you?
So it's weird. So as an indie, I'm a part of the industry, but I'm existing out of force of will kind of thing. Like my little pocket exists because I'm willing it to exist. Right. But I definitely see that there is a contraction, like of just everybody is kind of doubling down or taking less risks and such. I know firsthand that it's kind of influencing publisher talks and things like that. So if you're looking to try and get some funding for your next project, you might have a warm time in going into like 2026. But it's very sad because we're just seeing a bunch of people, skilled people, talented people, like end up leaving the industry. And these are people who are established, and it kind of makes me wonder and worry for the people who, I guess, look like me, who are coming from like the fringes, really, to try and be a part of this industry that was already hard to get into, has just suddenly gotten like way, way, way harder. And then the only advice I could say is like, okay, do the entrepreneurial thing, do the indie thing. But even that is tricky because you need to have savings and you need to have either a funder to come in and cover things, because you're basically going to be working on a project without any income from said project for a while, right? And even releasing games in this environment is also really, really, really tricky and really tough because discoverability is a continuous issue. Like on the storefronts, like getting people to see your projects is really tricky. And then you're also competing against this huge backlog of games. Like when you release your project, depending on how you look at things, you're either directly competing or you're incidentally competing against them. So like, why are they going to pick up your indie game for $15 when, Elden Ring and everything else from last year, all the brilliant games from last year is still in the backlog, right? So it's tough. I've heard other people say that basically just hold fast to like 2026. Everybody's kind of knuckling down. But at the same time, if you're an indie and you've kind of looking at the landscape and you say like, okay, yeah, this is not it for me. I don't blame you. I've had friends who've kind of just like, they've done everything, they've shipped their game, and then they're like, yeah, that's it, I'm out, and just step back. And I don't blame them if that's the case. And as a result, it's kind of hard for me to like put myself in a position where, like, if somebody, like a student asks me, like, I want to get into the game industry, what should I focus on? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I can tell you focus on a portfolio, like work on stuff, getting used to finishing stuff. But in my head, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you to like, in terms of like where to apply to or what to look for, because like the short term view of the industry is not looking super, super, super great.
So, with that being said, do you think who has it worse in the long run, AAA or indie?
If I had to like pick a side or on the side, I'd say AAA has it worse in the long run. Mostly because indie exists because indie wants to exist. Like most like indie projects don't have to justify themselves like financially to the same degree as AAA. AAA, you have hundreds of employees working on a project, and that project better make money, or suddenly all those people are laid off. Whereas an indie project would be like a group of 10 people coming together to finish one project, like kind of like an art thing. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, yeah, right. That's more on in the indie sphere. The AAA, they're losing so much talent right now that I genuinely think that there will be a drought of great games in the short future.
It's interesting because hearing what the finished game industry people think, they think that right now is a great time to start a studio, right? Like as like an indie person, because triple A is kind of closing these acquired indie studios, and they are losing a lot of people, but we are not seeing a lack of games released. Right?
At least right
like
now.
We see games that are like canceled, or they're like, oh, well, we started to work on it. And I believe that it's mostly from AAA closing indie studios. And indie studios, or the person who started it, or the people that are a part of it, I don't think they're just going to stop making games. I think they might have to pivot. And maybe they can't make that same IP, like they can't make that same game because it probably belongs to like, whoever acquired them. But I think that we are going to still see some like cool projects, like you said, that has like a piece of people in it. And we're going to see some good stuff, but we might just have to wait a bit because, going from your own indie studio to being acquired, you thinking that it's the best thing in the world, to then being let go, I think you would need some time to bounce back from that, Yeah, I think AAA is a bit to blame for what's going on right now, because of the over investing during like the pandemic, and then not really having a way to scale it and kind of promise those numbers. They kind of just I feel like a lot of people treat the gaming industry like the stock market right now.
Yeah.
Or they did, and they were like, oh, money, 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 money. Okay, it's dying. Give me back my money. But it's dying because you're going to pull your money. It's dying because all that money that you guys gave for DI, you're not continuously like putting into it, in a time where people say they're thirsty for like non-white, straight protagonist, like cis male type of thing. So I think indie is to blame, that doesn't mean I'm going to like completely stop playing my games. It just makes me hesitant to buy more games. Like I've never been the person to continuously buy a game every time it came out. Like, at first it was like Assassin's Creed, and then Ubisoft started sending it to me, so I didn't have to buy it. But like, I think that's a game that I would play every year. And I just never been the one to like over consume games like that. And so, you know, I can totally understand what you're saying. Like, hey, people are like indirectly competing with like a backlog. Like, I went through my backlog. I don't think I have anything left. I'm like very proud of myself for that. So, but I have been focused on like my whole career has actually been indie games. So like this is kind of important to me because that's how I started. I was like, yeah, you know, I want to play the indie gamers. I want to boost them. I want them to know that someone cares about their work. Like going to PAX, RIP E3, and PAX. I think PAX closed something. I don't remember, but you know, and going to like the smaller indie places and things like that. Like that was exciting to me. Like I know everybody wanted to be invited to like Ubisoft and PlayStation and like the Xbox thing, but I'm like, let's talk to the indie devs, like because they're gonna be here. You know what I mean? Like if everyone decides like, hey man, there's no Ubisoft tomorrow, like that's it. That's it, you know? Or, you know, same thing with like Xbox, because I saw an article, I don't know how much stock to put into it, but it was just like, you know, the console, not even like a console war, but they're like, yeah, you know, Xbox might be dying, this thing is dying, this is doing that, this is doing this. And, you know, especially my concern with indie devs is the concern right now that more and more people want to own their games, and then indie devs have this, like, you know, their main distribution system is digital. And so it's like if indie devs could start giving out like physical things, I know that's like a whole nother bill after we just talked about like not having money. I think that would be really helpful, you know, but I know that's hard. But they are raising up a bunch of people who don't care that things are digital. And us older people are like, I want to own my things. You know, like I saw this TikTok of this girl saying, even when she buys a game, she still has to like put it in her system and then download the game to make sure it's like your game. And I was like, you know, I never thought about that. I never even thought about that. You can't just like plug something in without using the internet. And that's so wild to me. That's like really, really wild to me. So they kind of already been like,
yeah, entire
doing
generation
that to us.
is like trained on that. But yeah, there are a lot of little things that probably need to kind of be investigated and addressed. Like there's a consolidation in AAA, the whole acquire, file, shutdown kind of cycle is really depressing. Like I said, like we both said the same thing effectively about indies. Like they always come with more interesting things, and they always are going to be there, regardless. Like by hook or crook, you know, an indie dev is going to indie dev. But like things may slow down a little bit because people either transitioning from AAA or, you know, the funding situation, etc. And then like as an industry, there are concerns around like preservation. Like, owning your stuff, like I think there are a handful. I think it's limited run. I think they do like physical media, but they normally do that like only for like the big projects. Like getting physical media for stuff is still kind of an issue. I think I saw somebody was like making custom, like he was calling them mixtapes, but they're really just like a USB and like the tape disc thing with like a slide of the game. And then that's what he was selling as a physical copy of games. And he was offering that service to a couple indies, which was cool. Like you just have a little, all right. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like there are so many weird barriers that you don't think about when it comes to making games. Because I realize we haven't even spoken about like travel, like travel to events and stuff like that. So like, yeah, nah. But yeah. We're in interesting times. This is kind of feels like a massive shakeup around everything, and it's gonna be a minute before we see things kind of settle, and then see what pops out of the ground afterwards.
I agree with that. I studied film for a little bit, and I kind of always equated video games to film because during the Great Depression or any time that's been hard, U.S. at least, right? Like the American soil. There has been the movies. Like people would always continue to spend on entertainment, right? And even that's like a shift now, right? With like the streaming systems, movies costing like $15 a person, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping that the industry would like learn from like the movie industry, the gaming industry would learn from the movie industry and like implement like diversity early on, and just be inclusive, right? Have like inclusivity, and would kind of have like a little bit of better practice, since they have like an example. They have an example of like what they shouldn't do, what does work, you know, and they have the space. They have the space to kind of, they had the space to kind of do things differently, because it is gaming and it was very niche and only the weirdos liked it and only people with very specific tastes were into it. So they had the opportunity to be, this isn't the best example, but they had an opportunity to be like Tumblr before it was like Tumblr, right? Like they had the opportunity, the freedom to like really connect with the people and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then because they're hiring people, you know, who used to run like Nike and Kellogg and this and that, like it's going to look more corporate-y. And I understand that business needs to be business so people can make money, so we can continue to make things that we need. I just, you know, like I feel like if you do this in the art world, they would throw tomatoes at you. I think, like, you know what I mean? Like, there are artists who, like, sell out and they do this and they do that and they paint, like, you know, a blank canvas for, like, $3 trillion and whatever the case is, you know. But I felt like if the practices that are in that cycle that you talked about of, like, hiring, acquiring, firing, shutting down in the art world, it would be like, wow, man, like, this is not, you know, what we set out to do. We set out to make a difference. Because at the end of the day, video games, they're art, they're storytelling, they're a form of activism, they're a form of sharing ideas, cultures, and opinions. And, you know, people can then do with those what they will. So, yeah, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, but... Let's not end on a sad note.
No, we're not. I was gonna say to not end on a sad note. Like we have to also give kudos. Like, yeah, this is the tough times, the dark times, whatever. But we still see a lot of great games coming out. We still see a lot of passionate people doing work, and I'm going to trust that that will always continue. Right? Like people are going to be creative. They're going to come up with awesome ideas. And I don't see like the industry like ever cratering and disappearing completely. Right? Especially
Agreed.
Now that we have all these tools that basically allow people to just make like paint with pixels kind of deal. Like they can bring their interactive dreams to life. And I don't think that can ever really be taken away from anybody. So indies are just going to continue indieing. And because of that, there will always be more things to play.
I agree with you. It has become very accessible for everyone to make a game, which adds to oversaturation, but still we will get, I think in the time that we are of the age of the internet and social media, I think we are just oversaturated with things, but I'm very happy that like gaming is accessible, right? Or to make game development is accessible. Unity is still free, right? Unity is still free. Like people can kind of connect with other people and be like, hey, like let's put this thing together, you know, in a game jam or outside of a game jam. So I am happy about that.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was a lot. This is that was a lot. I feel like we had a very good conversation. What do you think about the conversation, Glenn? Was it a good conversation?
Yeah, I think it's a good conversation. We touched on a lot of things. And yeah, I feel like this was a good chat. Like we definitely need to link up and chat more. Like there's a lot to unpack about like cultural exploration and the industry and just like, you know, how we can kind of survive as indies. Like there is a lot to unpack there and kind of scratch the surface in this chat. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I want to unpack all of it. let's just lay it out on the table and see what's what and see how we can support the cause. Let's come with those solutions. If there's a problem, I want to solve it. So yeah, it's been really good. I appreciate you coming and talking to me and, unpacking some things. I know a lot of the things that you said today are going to get people thinking and agreeing, and hopefully it comes out with some think pieces, good or bad. We just want think pieces, people. We just want people to think something and join in the conversation so that we can make this a broader conversation. Glenn, is there anything you want to say before I wrap this up?
No. I want more conversations around this. If anybody listening to this, thinks that I'm completely off base, or you completely agree with me, or you just want to, compliment my hair, you can find me on social media of your choice. I'm at SpriteWrench, Sprite as in the soda, wrench as in the tool. On Twitter, I refuse to call it X. Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky. Too many social media platforms.
We're everywhere because we have to be. We never know what's going to go down. So we have to be like, I was already there. So I get it. I just joined Blue Sky and I have 2 tweets. I don't even know what to call it. I'm like, it's a good platform for journalists, so maybe I should use it like that more. But honestly, it was exhausting. Like, I posted on Twitter yesterday and I was like, what the heck? Like, I don't even have it on my phone. I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
yeah,
here we go again. So, Anywho, Glenn, thank you so much for joining me today. This is the end of Gaming for the Culture. If you guys have any comments, questions, feedback, or anything like that, please feel free to hit me up. Let me know if there's something you want to talk about or someone you want me to talk to. I will reach out to them and do my best. And until next time, game safely. Please continue to wash your hands. Okay? Wash your hands, wash your butts, wash your sheets, just wash everything. Do all of it. Wash your mind, scrub your mind, right? Scrub your mind of all of that stuff. And I will talk to you guys soon.